"Please hurry," she pleaded. The rancher stepped forward and did the unexpected. The wind cut across the red plains like a knife, carrying the faint scent of dust, metal, and distant rain. Elias Kane sat atop his hover rider, scanning the horizon. The sun was low, casting long shadows over the jagged rocks that jutted from the barren land. His herd of bioengineered cattle grazed quietly, their soft hums blending with the whistling wind. Life on the frontier planet Serana 7 was quiet, simple, and safe, until the crackle of his comlink shattered the silence. "Please hurry, they're coming." The voice was sharp, desperate, and human. A young woman, her words trembling, filled Elias' ears. The comlink sparked and hissed as her voice repeated, urgency growing in every syllable. Elias frowned. He wasn't used to calls for help, especially out here. Serana 7 was remote and most people stayed away, but there was something about her voice. Something that made his stomach tighten. Who is this?" he said, his voice low. There was no answer, only static. The comlink crackled again and the message came through clearer this time. "Please hurry, I don't have much time." Elias felt a cold knot of worry tighten in his chest. His fingers flexed on the hover rider controls. He could ignore it. Many would have. This was dangerous territory, filled with alien predators, rogue mining drones, and the remains of failed colonies. Most humans stayed far away, but Elias had never been one to stand by while someone was in danger. His father had taught him that. A human doesn't wait for help when it's needed. We step forward. He swallowed hard and made a decision. "All right," he muttered to himself. "Let's see who needs help." The journey was not easy. Serana 7 was a harsh planet. Jagged cliffs rose like the spines of some ancient beast, and rust-colored dust choked the air. The hover rider hummed beneath him, carrying him swiftly over the plains. But even at full speed, the terrain was challenging. Rocks jutted out unpredictably, and sudden gusts of wind could tip a rider over if not careful. Elias guided his vehicle with careful precision, every movement deliberate, honed from years of life on this frontier. Hours passed. The sun dipped lower. The sky shifted from orange to a deep violet, dotted with the first few stars of the evening. The message repeated in his mind over and over, "Please hurry, they're coming." Elias wondered what they could be. Serana 7 had wildlife, yes, but nothing like the fear in that voice. His gut told him it was more than animals, and then, far ahead, he saw it. A flicker of movement, unnatural against the red plains. He slowed, scanning the area carefully. There, in a narrow canyon cutting through the cliffs, he saw her. A young woman, maybe 19 or 20, crouched behind a rock. Her clothes were torn and dusty, and she clutched something close to her chest, a small metallic case humming faintly. And she was not alone. 3 creatures stalked her from the shadows. Metallic and sleek, their limbs were jointed in ways that no human could match. Their eyes glowed faint red, scanning the terrain with precise calculation. Elias' heart pounded. These were the biomechanical predators he had only seen in reports. Dangerous, ruthless, deadly, but he didn't hesitate. He nudged the hover rider forward, careful to stay hidden behind rocks and ridges. He needed a plan. Charging straight in would get him and her killed. Instead, he observed. The creatures moved in patterns, circling and probing. Their steps were precise but predictable. That was the edge humans had, unpredictability, ingenuity. Elias remembered his father's words. "Think like the land, use what you have. A human can outsmart anything if they understand it." He dismounted quietly, crouching low behind a boulder. From his pack, he pulled a small flare gun and a handful of holographic decoys, simple devices he had designed for scaring off predators from his ranch. Nothing fancy, nothing military grade, but enough to confuse or distract. He set the decoys in a line across the canyon's entrance, leading toward a steep drop-off. Then he fired a flare into the sky. The sudden light and heat drew the creature's attention. They hissed and clicked in mechanical synchronization, moving toward the noise, leaving the woman exposed for a moment. "Run!" Elias shouted, emerging from cover and waving his arms. Lyra froze for a second, fear locking her in place. Then she saw him. Hope sparked in her eyes. She ran, clutching the metallic case. Elias moved to intercept the creatures as they turned back, realizing they had been tricked. He used a whip-like tool from his pack to trip one of the predators. Sparks flew as it hit the ground. The other two hesitated, confused by the sudden display of unpredictability. "Over here!" Elias shouted, and together they ducked into a narrow crevice between two cliffs. They were safe for now. Lyra's chest heaved as she caught her breath. Dust clung to her hair and skin. Elias studied her. She wasn't a soldier, not trained for combat, just an ordinary human, terrified and desperate. I don't know how to thank you," she said, voice trembling. "No time," Elias said, scanning the horizon. "We need to move. They'll regroup soon." As they moved cautiously along a hidden trail, Lyra explained, I'm carrying something important, data about the aliens. They're planning an attack if they get this." Her voice broke and she swallowed hard. "It could mean the end for the colonies." Elias nodded. He had expected something big, but hearing it from her made the stakes real. He had lived a quiet life on the ranch, tending his herd, surviving on skill and patience. Now, for the first time, he was part of something bigger. The wind howled through the canyon as night fell. Shadows stretched and distant noises echoed. They were not alone. Elias could sense it in the silence between sounds. The predators might be gone, but the real danger was still out there, smarter, faster, and more relentless. He kept moving, leading Lyra through narrow passages, rocky paths, and hidden ledges. His mind worked constantly, calculating, predicting, improvising. Every twist and turn, every shadow was a chance for the unknown to strike. But he remained calm, focused, human. That, he realized, was their greatest weapon. Alien technology, predators, and machines could be powerful, but they were predictable, bound by rules and programming. Humans could adapt. Humans could surprise. And Elias Kane had a plan. Hours passed. The stars above burned brightly, cold and distant. Lyra shivered, exhausted but alive. Elias offered her water and a small ration from his pack. They moved silently, listening, watching. Every step was a test of courage and wit. Finally, they reached a small plateau overlooking a valley. The glow of distant settlement lights shimmered faintly, human habitation far below but within reach. Elias studied the valley. It was a dangerous descent but safer than the canyon, with more cover and options for ambush if necessary. "You'll make it," he said, more to himself than to her. "We'll get you there." Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. You risked everything for me. Why?" Elias shrugged, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Because it's the right thing to do. And because humans don't wait for help. We step forward, that's what we do." For a moment the wind carried only their breathing, and the stars above seemed to watch silently. Two humans, small against the vastness of the frontier, but unbroken. The first part of their journey had ended. But the real challenge, the fight to deliver the data, the test of human ingenuity, and the confrontation with the forces that pursued them, was just beginning. Elias Kane looked at the horizon, the red plains stretching endlessly before him. The adventure had started, and for the first time in years, he felt the thrill of stepping into the unknown. And somewhere, deep in the canyon below, the glowing eyes of the predators reflected the faint starlight, waiting. The night air was cold, sharper than anything Elias had felt on the plains of Serrana 7. Stars sparkled overhead like scattered shards of glass, and the wind whispered through jagged rocks, carrying distant echoes that made the canyon seem alive. Elias crouched behind a jagged boulder, his eyes scanning the valley below. Lyra, still clutching the metallic case tightly, crouched beside him. Her hands trembled, but her resolve was growing. She had survived so far, thanks to Elias, and she was beginning to trust him. Elias whispered, "We can't go straight down. The valley floor is too open. They'll see us from a mile away. We need another route." Lyra nodded, swallowing hard. "Then, where do we go?" He pointed to a narrow ledge that ran along the cliffside, barely wide enough for one person. "That ledge," he said. "It's dangerous, but it's the safest path. And it leads to a ravine. From there we can reach the settlement without being seen." She looked doubtful, glancing at the ledge that dropped sharply into darkness. "It looks impossible." Elias smiled faintly. "Nothing worth doing is easy." Carefully he led the way, moving slowly and deliberately along the narrow cliffside. Every footstep was measured, every handhold tested. Lyra followed closely, her small frame making it easier to navigate the tight spaces. Halfway along the ledge, the wind gusted violently. Elias braced himself and pulled Lyra to his chest to prevent her from slipping. The metallic case slipped from her hands, sliding dangerously close to the edge. With a quick flick, Elias caught it and held it securely. "Careful," he said, his voice steady, masking the tension he felt inside. "One wrong move and we fall, but we won't fall, not tonight." They moved cautiously, but the sound of something metallic scraping against rock echoed from below. Elias froze. He crouched low, scanning the darkness. The predators had found them again. Their glowing red eyes reflected faintly against the cliffs as they advanced with silent, deadly precision. "They're coming," Elias whispered. "We need to act fast." He looked around. There were rocks above the ledge, loose enough to be dislodged, and a narrow overhang that could hide them temporarily. Thinking quickly, Elias grabbed a few large stones and dropped them down toward the predators. The rocks bounced and clattered, drawing the creatures' attention. They paused, confused by the unexpected noise. Elias smiled to himself. Predictable patterns. Even the most advanced machines were predictable if you understood their instincts. "Move," he hissed to Lyra, guiding her under the overhang. They crouched, barely breathing as the predators scanned below. After a tense few minutes, the creatures moved on, leaving the humans in silence. Once safe, Elias turned to Lyra. "They're smart. Faster than anything we've faced, but they're not clever enough to think like humans. We can use that." Lyra looked at him, admiration mixing with fear. You're amazing. How do you stay so calm?" He shrugged. "Experience, and knowing that panic doesn't solve anything. It's the calm that wins fights, not fear." They continued along the ledge until it opened into a narrow canyon below. The moonlight illuminated the rocky walls, casting strange shadows. Elias led Lyra down carefully, using his hands and feet to steady themselves on the uneven terrain. The metallic case glowed faintly in her grip, a reminder of the urgent mission they were on. Halfway down the canyon, a sudden roar echoed. The predators had returned, and this time they were accompanied by a new threat, hovering drones, their sensors scanning for any sign of movement. Elias' mind raced. He had faced dangers before, but this combination, machine predators and drones, was new. He had to think fast. He crouched, whispering instructions to Lyra. "Follow me exactly. Do not make a sound. Move only when I say." He led her to a small crevice in the canyon wall. It was barely wide enough to hide them both, but it offered cover from the drones. Elias pulled out a few reflective panels from his pack, simple tools he used to scare away predators at his ranch. He positioned them to create false reflections of movement, hoping to trick the drones' sensors. As the drones hovered closer, scanning the canyon floor, Elias held his breath. One drone turned slightly, its sensors flickering. The reflections had worked. It paused, then moved on, failing to detect them. "Good," Elias whispered, exhaling quietly. "That's the advantage humans have. Machines can only react to what they see. We can make them see what isn't there." Lyra nodded, her eyes wide. "I never thought humans could do this. I thought we'd be helpless." Elias smiled faintly. "Helpless? No. Humans survive because we adapt, we improvise, and we don't give up." They moved deeper into the canyon, but the danger was far from over. The predators had split up, searching methodically, and the drones were circling above, scanning every rock, every shadow. Elias realized that stealth alone wouldn't be enough. They needed a plan that would turn the predators against the drones, or vice versa. He spotted a narrow rock arch above the canyon floor. A loose boulder rested precariously at the top. An idea formed. "Wait here," he whispered to Lyra. "I'll handle this. Stay quiet." Elias climbed carefully to the boulder, feeling the rough rock beneath his hands. The predators below had noticed him, their glowing eyes fixed. He waited until the drones moved past, then gave the boulder a sharp push. It tumbled down, crashing into the canyon floor, narrowly missing the predators. The noise drew the predators toward it, but the boulder also triggered a chain reaction. Smaller rocks slid, creating a barrier between Elias, Lyra, and the pursuing drones. The predators, confused, turned toward the sliding rocks. The drones, unable to navigate the falling debris, hovered uncertainly before retreating temporarily. Elias slid down to Lyra's side, panting but relieved. "That should give us some breathing room," he said. Lyra looked at him in awe. You think of everything. How?" Elias shook his head. "You learn on a place like Serana 7. Out here, survival isn't about guns or armor. It's about thinking ahead. And humans were good at thinking ahead." They pressed on, moving toward a narrow ravine that led to a hidden route to the settlement. The terrain was rough, full of jagged rocks and hidden crevices, but Elias navigated it with precision. Each step, each jump was calculated. Every sound in the canyon was analyzed. As dawn approached, the first light of the twin suns glinted off the metallic case in Lyra's hands. Elias knew that reaching the settlement would be the hardest part. The predators would regroup, and the drones would continue their search. But he also knew something important. Humans had a way of turning impossible situations into victory. Finally, they reached the edge of the ravine. Below lay a narrow river that cut through the rocky landscape. The water was shallow but fast-moving, perfect for hiding their trail from drones. Elias pointed. "We cross here. Stay low, follow me exactly." Lyra nodded, trusting him completely. Together, they descended to the riverbank. The water was cold, biting at their skin, but it was worth it. They moved swiftly, keeping to the shadows, letting the current carry them forward. Halfway across, a predator emerged from the opposite bank, its metallic limbs glinting in the morning light. Elias froze, assessing the situation. He had a choice: fight, flee, or outsmart. Elias' hand went to his pack. He pulled out a small device, a sonic emitter he had designed for scaring away rogue animals. He activated it, creating a high-pitched sound that only the predator could hear. The creature paused, shaking its head, disoriented. Elias grinned. "That's it. Humans always find a way." The predator stumbled back, and they continued across the river, reaching the far bank safely. Elias and Lyra collapsed for a moment, catching their breath. We made it," Lyra whispered, relief washing over her face. Elias nodded, scanning the horizon. "We've made it this far, but the real challenge isn't over. We need to get you to the settlement, and that means staying ahead of them, always one step ahead." Lyra looked at him, her fear replaced with determination. "I trust you. Lead the way." Elias smiled faintly. "Then let's move. The humans who survive aren't the strongest. They're the cleverest, and will survive." As they pressed onward, the canyon behind them seemed quiet, but Elias knew better. The predators would not give up easily, and the drones would resume their search. But for now, they had survived another trial. And in the vast, dangerous world of Serana 7, survival was the first step toward victory. The sun had risen higher, burning pale yellow over the jagged horizon of Serana 7. The wind had calmed, leaving only the soft hum of the river and distant calls of alien wildlife. Elias and Lyra crouched behind a rocky outcrop, taking a brief moment to catch their breath. Their clothes were torn, dusty, and damp from the river crossing, but they were alive. Lyra opened the metallic case briefly, peeking inside. The faint glow of the data core reassured her. This has to reach the settlement, she said softly. It contains everything, coordinates, plans, everything about the invasion. Elias nodded. Then we don't have time to waste. We move quickly, quietly, and cleverly. That's our advantage. He scanned the terrain ahead. The canyon ended in a wide open plain, leading to a human outpost several kilometers away. There was no cover and the predators could easily strike again. The drones would also be sweeping this area, their sensors designed to detect movement from miles away. Elias sighed. We'll need a plan, and we'll need to be unpredictable. Lyra looked at him, confusion in her eyes. Unpredictable, but how? They're machines, they can see and react faster than us. Elias smiled faintly. Machines can see, yes, but humans can think. Machines react. We create situations they don't expect. That's the human edge. He took Lyra to a shallow ravine running across the plain. We'll move along this. It's low enough to hide us from drones, and if the predators follow, we can lead them into the terrain traps I set up. Traps? Lyra asked, curious. Yes, Elias said, crouching beside a mound of loose stones and metallic scraps. Simple things, but they work if you know the patterns. The predators are fast, but they rely on chasing. They follow movement. We'll guide them where we want. They spent the next half hour carefully arranging stones and reflective panels across the ravine. Elias used small holographic decoys he carried from his ranch. Nothing fancy, just simple light projections that looked like moving humans. Machines and predators can be tricked by illusion. Humans understand illusion better than any machine. Once the traps were in place, Elias led Lyra to the far side of the ravine, moving low and silently. The predators were nowhere in sight, but the sense of being watched was intense. Elias' instincts, honed over years on Serana 7, told him that danger was closer than it appeared. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A drone appeared, hovering low over the plain, its sensors sweeping methodically. The holographic decoys flickered, and one projected a moving image of a human figure sprinting across the ravine. The drone paused, hesitated, then adjusted its path to intercept the decoy. Elias whispered, "Now," and they slipped past under the cover of a small rock ridge. The drone's sensors were fooled and they moved closer to the settlement. The human outpost was still a few kilometers away, but the terrain became trickier. The plain was littered with jagged rocks, shallow pits, and tall metal structures, remnants of abandoned mining colonies. Elias used each obstacle, each shadow to conceal their movement. "Why are they so determined?" Lyra asked quietly. "Why do they want this data so badly?" Elias glanced at her. "Because it's information about humans, about weaknesses, colonies, defenses. They want to control, dominate, destroy. But humans, we fight back with brains, courage, and adaptability. That's why they fear what you carry." A sudden metallic screech made them freeze. One of the predators had returned, gliding over the terrain with uncanny speed. Elias crouched, whispering instructions. "Follow me exactly. Step where I step. Don't make a sound." He led her toward a cluster of abandoned mining towers. The predator followed, and Elias quickly analyzed the structure. It was old, partially collapsed, and the supports were weak. He had an idea. "Lyra, stay behind me. Watch carefully." Elias climbed the debris carefully, avoiding loose beams. He reached the top of a collapsed tower and pried loose a large support beam, holding it above the predator's path. With a quick push, he sent the beam crashing down. The predator hissed in confusion, its path blocked. It tried to leap over, but the beam shifted, tripping it slightly. Elias had used nothing more than timing, gravity, and physics to gain an advantage. "See," he said, climbing down. "Humans use their environment. Machines rely on movement. Predictable patterns can be broken. That's the human advantage." Lyra stared at him, wide-eyed. You're incredible. I've never seen anyone think like that." Elias shrugged. "I've had to. Out here, thinking is survival." As they continued, a drone suddenly appeared above, scanning the terrain. Elias realized they were running out of options. The plane was almost open and the predator below was recovering. He needed to act fast. He led Lyra toward an abandoned mine shaft, half buried in rubble. "We go in there," he said. "It's dark, but it will hide us. And the drones won't see inside." They entered the shaft cautiously, the air damp and smelling of earth and rusted metal. The shadows seemed alive, but Elias stayed calm, guiding Lyra deeper. The predator followed at the entrance, confused by the narrow passage, and the drone hovered above, unable to enter. Once inside, Elias set up another small trap. Using wires and scrap metal, he rigged a simple mechanism that would create a loud noise and spark when triggered, enough to startle the predator but not harm them. Then he led Lyra to a safer corner of the mine. The predator, triggered by the noise, hissed and retreated while the drone hovered outside, confused. Elias smiled. "That's it. We use their own instincts against them. Improvise, adapt, overcome." Lyra nodded, her fear giving way to admiration. "Humans, we really are clever." "I thought machines would always win." Elias shook his head. "Machines win when humans forget how to think, but humans win when we use what we have. Our brains, our courage, our creativity. That's why we survive." Hours passed. The mine shaft offered temporary safety, but Elias knew they couldn't stay long. They needed to reach the settlement before the predator regrouped or more drones arrived. He examined the map in Lyra's metallic case. There was a hidden path, narrow and treacherous, but it led directly to a ridge overlooking the settlement. "We take the ridge," he said. "It's risky, but it gives us cover and a view. Once we're above, we can plan the final approach." Lyra followed silently, trusting his judgment. The climb was difficult, the rocks loose, and the path narrow. One wrong step could send them tumbling down. Elias moved steadily, testing every foothold, every handhold. He guided Lyra patiently, coaching her through the tricky sections. As they reached the top, the settlement came into view. Small lights flickered in the distance, human habitation, secure but far enough that reinforcements could arrive. Relief washed over Lyra, but Elias remained vigilant. The predators could strike at any moment and drones might still patrol. Suddenly, the sound of heavy movement reached them. One of the predators had climbed the ridge, faster than expected. Elias quickly assessed the terrain. Below them was a narrow ledge leading to a small ravine. Above, a loose rock formation could be dislodged. He turned to Lyra. "Stay here. Watch carefully." With careful precision, Elias pushed a large rock formation over the predator's path. It tumbled down, creating a small landslide. The predator paused, confused, then turned back. Elias breathed a quiet sigh of relief. "You see," he said, "humans adapt. We survive because we think. Machines and predators rely on patterns. We break them. That's the edge humans have." Lyra smiled faintly, her confidence growing. "I've never met anyone like you. You make the impossible seem possible." Elias shrugged. "No one does it alone. We use what we have. And tonight, it's just humans being humans." The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the terrain. Elias and Lyra stood at the edge of the ridge, overlooking the settlement. It was within reach, but the final approach would be the hardest. Drones patrolled the outskirts, and predators could return at any moment. Elias clenched his fists, determination in his eyes. "The unexpected works best when no one expects it. That's what we'll do next. We move fast, think fast, and stay ahead. Human ingenuity wins." Lyra nodded, her fear replaced by determination. "Then lead the way." "I trust you completely." Elias smiled faintly, the thrill of challenge coursing through him. This was what humans were meant for: improvisation, courage, and survival against all odds. And today, on Serana 7, humans had the edge. As they prepared for the descent into the settlement, Elias knew one thing: the unexpected move would change everything. Humans weren't just surviving, they were proving that ingenuity, courage, and determination could outmatch even the deadliest threats. The predators below hissed and a drone hovered above, but Elia's cane was ready. The human spirit was unstoppable, and tonight they would prove it again. The settlement lay below, its lights flickering softly like fireflies in the early morning haze. Elia's cane crouched at the edge of the ridge, scanning every movement. The terrain between them and the settlement was treacherous, open plains dotted with jagged rocks, shallow gullies, and remnants of old machinery. Every step could expose them to drones or predators. Lyra clutched the metallic case tightly, her knuckles white. It looks so exposed. How can we get across without being seen? Elia studied the landscape, calculating angles, shadows, and movement patterns. We use what humans do best. We observe, improvise, and adapt. Machines rely on rules. Predators follow instincts. Humans can think ahead. That's our edge. He rose slowly, signaling Lyra to follow. Stay low. Move only when I move. Watch the shadows, listen to the sounds. Every step matters. They advanced cautiously, using small rock formations as cover. The predators were nowhere in sight for now, but Elias knew better than to trust silence. Drones hovered faintly above, their sensors sweeping systematically. One misstep and they would be detected. Elias paused, studying a cluster of abandoned mining machinery ahead. Rusted, broken, and uneven, it was perfect for creating distractions. He whispered to Lyra, "We'll split the attention. Follow me exactly and don't make a sound." Using his pack, Elias pulled out a few small, portable sound devices designed to mimic footsteps, animal noises, or metallic clatters. He set them strategically among the machinery. Then he activated them from a distance. The sounds echoed across the plain. Drones shifted their flight patterns to investigate. Predators below hissed and moved toward the noise. Elias and Lyra, hidden in the shadows of a large, broken crane, waited. "See," he whispered. "We create chaos without touching them. Humans can make the enemy fight themselves." Lyra nodded, eyes wide with admiration. "I've never imagined humans could do that. I thought technology alone would win." Elias shook his head. "Brains beat brawn when used right. Courage and creativity give humans an advantage no machine can match." Step by step, they moved across the open plain. Elias guided Lyra carefully, using shadows, rocks, and uneven terrain as cover. Each movement was calculated, every sound controlled. The drones continued to investigate the false noises, giving them moments of precious cover. Halfway across, a predator appeared from behind a rusted structure. Its metallic limbs glinted in the sunlight. Lyra froze, but Elias placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "Remember what we do," he said quietly. "Predictable movement is danger. Unpredictable movement is survival. Watch me." Elias stepped into the open, deliberately drawing the predator's attention. He sprinted toward a narrow trench, weaving and dodging debris. The predator followed, its mechanical instincts locking onto him. As it approached the trench, Elias kicked loose a pile of stones, sending them clattering down into the trench. The predator stumbled, momentarily trapped. "Now!" he shouted. Lyra ran alongside him, the metallic case secured. They sprinted to the cover of another abandoned structure. The settlement was now within sight, but more drones appeared, their sensors scanning systematically. Elias assessed the situation quickly. They needed a final plan to reach the perimeter safely. He pulled Lyra into a small ditch, crouching low. "We're going to use the terrain one last time. Look at the old conveyor tracks ahead. They're elevated slightly. We move along them. The drones can't follow easily and the predators won't climb. It's our route." They moved carefully onto the narrow tracks, balancing as they advanced. Every step was precise, and Lyra struggled at first, but Elias coached her patiently. One foot in front of the other. "Keep your balance. Don't look down too long." The drones hovered above, scanning below, but the tracks elevated them just enough to avoid detection. The predators hissed from the plain below, unable to reach them. Elias smiled faintly. Humans adapt. We survive because we find solutions where others see only danger. As they neared the settlement, a sudden alarm blared. Motion sensors had detected the false noises earlier, triggering automated defense protocols. Lights flashed, and turrets rotated slowly toward the source. Elias froze, realizing that the drones might lead the predators straight to them. "Stay low," he hissed. "We use their own defense against them." He grabbed two small reflective panels from his pack and angled them to create a blinding reflection toward the turret's sensors. The automated turrets paused, scanning the blinding light, unsure of the source. The drones hovered close, confused by the sudden reflection, and the predators below hesitated. "Move!" Elias shouted. They sprinted the last few meters to the cover of a small ridge at the edge of the settlement. Safe for now, but still exposed. Lyra collapsed against the rocks, breathing heavily. I don't know how you do it. Every step you think ahead. You see what I don't see." Elias offered her a hand to stand. "Experience. And remembering one thing, humans survive because we think. We adapt. Machines follow rules. Predators follow instincts. Humans, we break the rules." The settlement gates were ahead, guarded but manned by humans. Elias had one more challenge, getting Lyra inside without alerting any remaining drones. He studied the perimeter. A small maintenance hatch, rarely used, led into the settlement's interior. It was just big enough for two people to slip through quietly. "We go through there," he said, pointing to the hatch. "It's a tight fit, but no drones monitor it. Stick close. Move fast but quietly." They approached the hatch carefully. A drone hovered above, but Elias waited for it to sweep to the far side. Timing was everything. He motioned for Lyra to follow, then slid through the opening first, pulling her inside immediately after. Inside the settlement, the air smelled of machinery, food, and human life, a strange comfort after the dangers outside. Lyra let out a long breath, relief washing over her. "We made it," she whispered, looking at Elias with awe. "I can't believe it. We actually made it." Elias smiled faintly. "Humans survive. Humans adapt. Humans fight in ways others can't predict. That's why we're still here." Once inside, Lyra led Elias to the command center, where the settlement's leader, Commander Reyes, awaited. His eyes widened when he saw the data case in her hands. You have it?" he asked, disbelief in his voice. "Yes," Lyra said, her voice trembling but determined. "We had to get it here. Elias, he got us through everything." Commander Reyes turned to Elias, his expression a mixture of respect and astonishment. "You're the rancher from the outer plains." Elias nodded simply. "Yes, and humans survive because we think ahead. We adapt. We improvise, that's how we got here." The commander studied him carefully. "You faced predators and drones alone and made it. That's impressive. Incredible." Elias shrugged, almost embarrassed by the praise. "It's just what humans do. When the stakes are high, we find a way." Lyra handed the metallic case to Commander Reyes, who immediately began analyzing its contents. The settlement security officers gathered around, astonished by the level of detail. The data contained everything: coordinates of alien forces, drone patrol schedules, predator movement patterns, and plans for the impending invasion. This changes everything," Commander Reyes said, eyes scanning the screen. "If we had this data earlier, the colonies would have had time to prepare defenses." Lyra looked at Elias, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Without you, none of this would have mattered. You saved more than just me. You saved all of us." Elias smiled faintly. "Just humans doing what we do best. We adapt, we survive, and we fight in ways no machine can predict." The morning passed. The settlement was alive with activity, officers preparing defenses, engineers analyzing the data, and scouts planning reconnaissance missions. Elias stood on the ridge overlooking the plains, watching the predators retreat and the drones depart. He realized something important. The predators and drones were dangerous, yes, but they had limitations. Machines followed rules. Predators followed instincts. Humans. Humans had creativity, courage, and strategy, and that was the difference. Lyra approached him quietly. "What now?" she asked. Elias looked at her, his eyes calm but determined. "Now we prepare. We don't just survive, we fight. And humans always find a way to win." The sun climbed higher, casting light across Serana 7. For the first time, the planet seemed less hostile, less unforgiving. Humans had proven their edge. They had survived the impossible and adapted to every challenge. Elias knew the battles ahead would be harder. The aliens would not give up. But he also knew this. As long as humans had courage, ingenuity, and determination, they would always find a way to prevail. And today, Serana 7 had witnessed exactly that. The settlement buzzed with activity as the sun climbed high over Serana 7. Engineers analyzed the data Lyra had delivered, scouts prepared patrols, and soldiers calibrated defensive systems. Elias Kane stood quietly on the ridge overlooking the plains. The metallic predators and drones that had haunted their journey were gone for now, retreating to regroup. But he knew they would return. The fight was far from over. Lyra joined him, clutching a cup of warm liquid. She handed it to him silently. "Thank you," she said. "For everything." Elias shook his head, taking a sip. "No, humans survive because we think, we adapt, we improvise. That's what we did out there. I just followed the human way." She looked at him, awe in her eyes. "But you were incredible. Every step, every choice, you saved my life. You didn't just survive, you changed the outcome for all of us." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe, but humans don't survive alone. It's the people around us, the choices we make, the courage we show, that's what counts." Inside the command center, Commander Reyes had already begun sharing the information with the colony leaders via secure channels. The metallic case contained detailed intelligence on alien patrols, drone patterns, and predator behavior. Most importantly, it revealed the invasion plan targeting multiple colonies across Serana 7 and neighboring planets. "This data, this is everything," Commander Reyes said to Lyra. "We now have a chance to prepare, to fight back." Lyra nodded, a determined glint in her eyes. "And we couldn't have done it without him. Elias Kane got us here." The commander turned to Elias. "You're a rancher from the outer plains, and yet you've done what trained soldiers couldn't. You've proven that human ingenuity, plain, simple, thinking people, can outmatch even the most advanced machines." Elias shrugged. "Experience teaches lessons no classroom can. Humans survive because we notice, we adapt, and we act. That's all." Outside, the twin suns rose fully, casting sharp light over the plains. Elias and Lyra walked toward the defensive perimeter. Scouts and engineers were already fortifying positions, using the intelligence from the case to plan ambushes and traps. Elias observed their work carefully. "This is how humans fight," he said quietly to Lyra. "Not with blind strength, but with strategy, foresight, and courage. Machines can follow patterns. Predators can follow instincts. Humans create the unexpected." Lyra nodded, inspired by the calm determination in his voice. "And today we've seen that in action. I'll never forget it." As they walked, Elias noticed something else. Ordinary humans, not soldiers, carrying out preparations with quiet efficiency. Farmers, engineers, medics, all contributing to a single effort. "That's the real power," he said softly. "Not one person alone, but humans working together, thinking together. That's unstoppable." The hours passed quickly. The settlement transformed into a fortress, each position carefully chosen, each route calculated. Drones that had hovered nearby earlier were now scouted and mapped. Predators, movement patterns were studied and anticipated. Every human in the settlement understood their role. Elias took a moment to show Lyra how simple human ingenuity could make a difference. Using scraps of old metal, he created small noisemakers and decoys, placing them strategically around the perimeter. "They'll chase these instead of us," he explained. Predictable patterns are their weakness. Unpredictable humans, our greatest strength. Lyra helped him set the devices, her confidence growing with each successful placement. Together, they transformed ordinary objects into tools of survival. "You know," she said with a small smile, "you make it look easy." Elias chuckled. "Easy? No, but humans survive because we refuse to panic. We observe, we adapt, and we act. That's the human way." As night approached, the first wave of alien scouts appeared on the horizon. Small drones moved silently, scanning the perimeter. Metallic predators slinked through the plains, seeking weaknesses. Yet the humans were ready. Elias took position with Lyra behind a barricade. Scouts reported movement, and the traps they had set caused the first predators to stumble, triggering decoys and false sounds. The drones, confused by reflective panels and strategically placed light sources, hesitated. "Watch closely," Elias whispered. "Humans create confusion. We turn fear into opportunity. That's why we survive." As predicted, predators chased false noises, and drones were drawn away from the settlement. Soldiers moved silently to intercept those that approached real positions. Lyra's hands shook slightly, but she followed Elias' example, calm, deliberate, observing the patterns, predicting the reactions. "See," Elias said softly, "we don't fight blindly, we fight smart. That's human ingenuity." Hours of coordinated effort passed. The alien forces realized their patterns were being manipulated. Each time they adjusted, humans responded with a new strategy. Rocks, decoys, reflective panels, noise devices, improvised barricades, all combined to confuse, delay, and trap the predators and drones. From the ridge, Elias observed the battlefield. Ordinary humans, not soldiers, were leading groups, improvising and adapting. Each person's creativity turned what seemed like a hopeless situation into a series of victories. Lyra looked at him, admiration evident. "It's incredible humans can do this. We're not just survivors, we're unstoppable when we think and work together." Elias smiled faintly. "Exactly. That's why humans have survived all over the universe. Courage, ingenuity, and teamwork. No machine, no predator, no force can beat that." By midnight, the alien forces had retreated. Drones flew back to the horizon, predators slunk into hidden terrain. The humans had held the line. The settlement was safe, and thanks to the intelligence Lyra had delivered and the strategies Elias implemented, the defense had been flawless. Commander Reyes approached Elias and Lyra. "I can't thank you enough. This changes everything. The colonies will now have time to prepare. The invasion can be stopped before it even begins." Elias shook his head. "Humans survive because we adapt, that's all. You prepared the defense, used the intelligence, and worked together. The credit is yours. I just helped see what humans are capable of." Lyra looked at him, her eyes shining. "You've changed how I see humans, Elias. Not because of strength or technology, but because of courage, cleverness, and heart. That's what matters most." He gave her a faint smile. "It's always mattered. Out here on Serana 7, humans have the edge. We just have to remember it." The settlement spent the next day repairing damages, reinforcing defenses, and preparing scouts for reconnaissance. But Elias remained on the ridge, watching the plains below. The predators might return and the drones could come back, but he was calm. Humans had proven something important. Brains, courage, and ingenuity always trump brute force. Lyra joined him once more, sitting beside him. "Do you ever rest?" she asked, smiling. Elias laughed softly. "I do, but humans are always alert, always thinking, always planning. That's how we survive and thrive." They sat in silence for a few moments, watching the horizon. The plains of Serana 7, once hostile and dangerous, seemed quieter now. Humans had survived the impossible, adapted to every threat, and proven their edge. Weeks later, the settlement became a hub for the surrounding colonies. Scouts carried intelligence, engineers shared defenses, and humans everywhere prepared for the coming invasion. But now they had a chance. Thanks to the courage, ingenuity, and determination of Elias and Lyra, the human colonies were ready. Elias returned to his ranch, riding his hover rider across the plains he had always called home. The herd grazed quietly, the wind rustled through the sparse vegetation, and for the first time in years he felt at peace. But he knew the universe remained full of dangers. And he also knew that humans, ordinary humans, were capable of extraordinary things. Lyra visited occasionally, sharing updates from the colonies and reminding him of what they had achieved together. Each time she marveled at his calm, clever approach to challenges, and each time Elias smiled faintly. Humans survived because they never gave up, never panicked, and never stopped thinking. One evening, as the twin suns set, casting golden light across the red plains, Elias looked at the horizon. The predators had retreated, the drones were gone, and the settlements were fortified. But the real victory was not just survival, it was proof. Proof that humans with courage, intelligence, and adaptability could face anything the universe threw at them. And somewhere deep inside, Elias knew this was only the beginning. The universe would test humans again, in ways unimaginable. But he also knew one truth. As long as humans retained their ingenuity, their courage, and their heart, nothing could stop them. He turned back to his ranch, to the quiet life he loved, knowing that ordinary humans could achieve extraordinary things. The stars above twinkled, silent witnesses to a species that refused to be defeated. On Serana 7, and everywhere humans had settled, the lesson was clear. The human spirit is unstoppable. Elias Kane, the humble rancher, had proven it.